Good morning, y'all. Let's see. Are all the channels up? Let me quick look. YouTube. Good morning, y'all. And so is. Let's see. Are all the channels up? Let me quick look. Although I haven't. YouTube. Good morning, y'all. And so is. Let's see. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, welcome. My name is Samantha Mirabal, and I'm here with Melco's application team to answer any questions we might have on DesignShop machines, pretty much whatever you want to talk about. Hopefully I can help out some. I have very few questions from today, only 2 in fact. So if you have questions, please type them in on the feed, and but we're live on both Facebook and YouTube. Just fill them out there. If you see me looking off to the side, I've got a second monitor up where I can watch the chats to see what comes in while we're live today. So I'll start off with the questions I got ahead of time. So let's see what we've got. Digitizing vector designs using smart conversion tools. Okay, so if you've got a design idea or something similar, let me know, and in the future I can kind of do that. For now, I just went and grabbed a vector that all of you have. So if you go, just to show you where this was, it's under your C drive. There's a folder called Designs. Goodness. And in there's one called Graphics, and then there's this coffee cup EPS. It's a vector, so and it's installed with the software, so that's why I grabbed it. So when you pull it up, you'll see I've got the vector list over in my project view here. It also brings in a image of it. I don't want the image, so we're just going to stay with the vector. So our smart little conversion tools, we've got these up here. Okay, so there's a stitch graphic region, and then there's, of course, the conversion assistant. There's several good videos, I believe, that have been done on the conversion assistant that Scott did and some of the other guys. I know Scott did one. I think Nate might have done one, or maybe it's just Scott. I don't know. So we can get you those links in a little bit to the actual conversion assistant. So you have that. This stitch graphic region I love using, although you don't have to use that when you have a vector, right? So just to give you some ideas, different things we can do with this vector. So a vector is, you see it's already got the wireframe, right? So it's got the wireframe, there's just no stitch information. So what you can do is go, all right, well, I've got this vector selected. I can just go insert stitch direction, left click and drag, and add however many stitch directions I want, and that will turn it into stitches. So that's one option you have, right? Another you can do is select your whatever vector is and just say convert, and it will do that for you. So that's a second one. Undo, just says I did that fast. Select it, and you'll see right here I've got the option to do a conversion, and I can say convert, and it will convert it over into stitches for me. What else can we do? Well, we've got the stitch graphic region, where this one, when you have a vector, you don't really need it, right? Because the stitch graphic region, I use it when working with raster-based graphics personally, to kind of find the outline of a shape and create it for me. But, you know, you always have that one. So of all of that, you know, anytime you've got a vector, it makes it pretty quick to create a file, right? So I can take this one and go, well, I want a curved stitch direction maybe. So I can left click, right click, left click. Now I've got a curved stitch direction to that. And maybe for this handle, I'll just do a basic convert. So again, I selected that. Flatten. So you'll watch this. Because that's checked, when I say convert, notice it puts a hole in it. All right. And that's because I have 2 vectors over one another, right? Because that white spot there, so it's flattening, it's removing the overlap, and this is how much overlap it's leaving. I can turn that off by unchecking that flatten button and click convert, and now there's no hole. So do you want a hole or not? It really depends, right? So if I've got large fill areas, there's no reason to stack fill upon fill upon fill, but in this case, it's a small one, right? So do I really need a tiny little hole, or do I just leave that there and put the stitch on top of it? It's really going to be case dependent on what you're doing. Okay, so working with vectors is really quick and easy to do. I mean, I could have taken this whole thing, selected it at the top, and just said convert, and poof. Now I don't have those curved stitch directions, so what do I do with that? Okay, well, here I would come over and first off go to the straight stitch direction. So what did I do? I selected the shape. I held this down to go back to stitch direction, that way it's highlighted. And now I can select that one and delete it. Hold this guy down, go to insert curved, and now I can insert a curved stitch direction if I'm so inclined. All right, so that is one option. So you've got a lot of options when you're working with vector files. Good morning, Lorena in Cantwell, Alaska. Welcome. I'm completely polar opposite, not the right word, but I'm in Florida. So it's cold and windy today, and that's relative. All right, it's cold as 64. So anyway, it's cold for me. All right, let's see, what do we have? So that's working with vectors. Like I said, you've got lots of options available to you, and it really just depends what do you want to do. 12 degrees in Alaska. I guess that's a little bit balmy for there, so that's nice. All right. Let's see, what other questions did we have? So the conversion tools. All right. So this was a generic question that I was tagged in, so I just added it here. So it's talking about when you're working with expanded files and you have lots of trims in there, how do you get rid of them? It really depends on quite a few things. Without looking at the specific file in detail, I wouldn't be able to give you an exact answer, but things to try would be to, on these trims, all right, so let me come over here. All right, somewhere, where? Right here. So I'm going to add a trim. So one of the things you would want to do is delete all these trims. So a quick way to do that, if you right click, select same type, that'll select all those trims so you can hit delete. All right, so that's one step to do. The other would be to look at the starts and stops. So some of those elements, let's say for that A, if I go back to the picture here. So, all right, maybe this U. If that U doesn't stop near where that J is, it's going to give you a dragged line. So let's say for some reason it started over here. So there may be things built in depending on where the elements start and stop where you do need a trim in there. But the first thing I would do is delete the trims, redraw, and then update it by hitting the auto update and see where you stand at that point. Because if there's long jump stitches, it's going to insert trims as there. It's just part of the conversion. So it really is going to depend on the specific file where your starts and stops are. But I would start by deleting those trims and then doing a walkthrough of it and see where you lay at that point. All right. Let's see what else. What is the design color layout called for the project, and where do you go to print out the color sequence? Okay, so the project layout, I don't quite, so there's a different software has some, I think what you're referring to is something created by another brand, another software which doesn't exist here. So I'll show you what we have available for us. All right, so if you go to File, Print, and where's the print man? All right, so here you'll get the design color sequence. So this is the what color is being used, and of course I don't have any of that assigned, which is why it's all 0. But here are the color sequence, how many stitches, what color it is. You can then go through here and add or remove different things. So if you add notes to your file, you know, I can say unique colors, so it'll tell me I'm only using 4 different colors, but I've got a whole bunch. So things like that. There, what else do we have? But yeah, it's all done through this print manager. So you can then save this off as a PDF, but you can put barcode if you're using the barcode. You can add notes. That notes field, let me show you, would be whatever you save here. So you can type whatever notes you have for the file. So if you have instructions for your operator, if you want to document specific threads, stabilizers, anything you want that, down the line you want to open up and be able to remember, for a particular client, if you have specific instructions that you want to remind yourself down the line, you can type them here. It'll save it in the file, and then when you go to your print manager, all those notes will pop up. Okay, so that's where you'll find it. It'll give you your color sequence in the print manager. You can also see that over here in your project view. Shows you the actual color sequence as well. Okay, we have a question on YouTube. Hi, Anna. So I'd love to get the Melco logo puff file for hats. Is there a way to get it? Personally, I don't see why not. I'm not the judge of that though. So I will send that in as a question to the team and see what they can do. And I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. I will see if they can add it as a sample, maybe as a sample design on the FAQ for Puff. That's where my suggestion would be. But like I said, I don't control that sort of stuff, so I'll have to ask. So I'll have to get back to you on that one. All right, sorry. Let's see. All right, so those, like I said, I had very few questions ahead of time. The conversion assistant, let me see if I can show you where to find videos in general, just so you have that info. It's always good to know where you can look for things, right? So if you go to the Melco service site and click on FAQ, and you can, there's a few things you got. So you have DesignShop Talk, and there will be, if you just search for that, you can find all the episodes, and there's, discussions on what was covered. So there's little elements, and you can kind of search through that if you're looking for a particular topic, things like that. You can also, let's see, conversion. There. Yeah, so there's a video on the graphic conversion assistant, 42 minutes long. And so let's see, any tips for fixing a partially stitched garment, i.e. rehooping, and how to set the machine to the right start point? Okay, so let's say oh, we got more questions coming in. All right, so let me start with, before I get sidetracked, fixing a garment. Let's start with that one. So let's say this design that I have on the screen, which has too many steps, so let me delete some steps. All right, so let's say I was sewing this, and if I accidentally unhooped it, not realizing it wasn't sewn, and this guy didn't sew, and this guy didn't sew. Well, all right, that doesn't make sense, but let's just pretend step 4 didn't sew, right? Okay, so all I have is this. So what do we do about it? So laser alignment is your friend, but it also is going to come down to setting up a new file to be able to align it. So you've got to pick features that you can get to on here. So what I personally would do, it's easier if you have straight points, but I would pick, I don't know, let's see, is this a straight line? Let me see. No, it's not. Oh, okay. So I would call it close enough because of this design. I would probably use the corner of this and then the corner of that little white thing there as my alignment points. All right, so if I'm going to do that, and this is where you just have to think about the design and set it up, right? So I can come over here, and I'm just going to make this a vector, operations, convert to vector. And I do this just because it makes it easier for me to see things. So I draw another vector and center these. You'll see why in a moment. That one. All right. So now what I'm going to do is set this up to be able to sew these things that were left off. All right, so I turn everything off, but I'm going to select it all so it moves together. So I turned everything off except for that vector that I created, because I need to center my design on this. So this is what you do if you're going to use laser left, laser right, laser bullseye. Okay, if you're not going to use that technique, then you do it a different way, but I do it this way. All right, so basically I'm lining up everything on the crosshairs here so that it intersects with my two vectors. So now it's centered to be able to use this piece of thread here and that piece of thread there as my alignment points. So I hoop my design however I'm going to hoop it. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to do a laser left, I'm going to come over here, do a laser left, and then I'm going to hit laser bullseye. The design will twist and rotate. And personally, I would delete all this stuff since it's already sewn and just leave what's left and just run this file. So by doing those alignment points, laser left, laser bullseye, it'll rotate and align it so that these things are positioned exactly where they should be. So it's really going to, if you need to do corrections on designs, you really just have to think about it. If it's come out of the hoop, that's one thing. If it's still in the hoop, then you just back up the design and go over what you want, right? So you got to think about it a little bit and decide how you're going to set it up to be able to sew it. Okay. Let's see, what other questions do we have? There was another one. I have DesignShop version 9. Can you add colors and thread numbers that are not listed in the software? Yes. So we should have a link to give you about creating color palettes. I'll show you where they go. You would just navigate to the version 9 software folders. I don't have version 9 software folders here on this particular computer, but mine are in the C drive, x86, go to Milko. You can see I have a lot of DesignShop, just not version 9 installed on this computer. And then you would go into color data, and this is where you would, either edit the chart you want to edit or add a new chart. If I go to one of my softwares I'm running now, let's say that one. Yeah, so we've got you the link for the color palette up there now. But you can see, like, these are color palettes I've created. And if I go and edit, you would literally, how I did this personally is I created my own, I copied the Madeira thread chart, pasted it, and then changed it all to be what I wanted. So I gave my own little numbers, what I wanted to call it, what I wanted to call the color, and then the RGBs of the particular colors. So, and you just drop that in here, and now if I were to go over here, I can go to properties, go to colors, change it to that particular thread chart, and go, okay, I want to use that color. Okay, so yeah, you can create your own charts, you can create your own colors, add to them, those sorts of things. All right, what other questions do we have? I don't see any others typed in. I'll wait a minute or two. See if anything else comes in. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, I've created quite a few color charts, and there's some of the older color charts have RGBs that I disagree with, so I've changed them to suit my needs. I'm not supposed to do that, but I do. All right. A question on YouTube. Can I save a design in Milko and the colors be saved so the next time it's open and ready to use without redoing the color sequence? So a few questions for you. Are you auto-selecting colors when you load it to the machine? Are you just wanting the DesignShop to always look the same, or are you talking about the machine side of having the colors already populated on the machine? So while I wait for that, I'll give you a few thoughts. So, no. If what you're wanting to do is to color this file, for instance, to stay always the same colors with the exact thread colors you want, you would just come over in your project view and choose those colors, right? So you would select and you don't have to do it in the project view. In fact, you can do it over here. So these are the unique thread colors being used in the design. So I can right click on that, edit color, and say, well, I really want to use this 1924 yellow. Every time, instead of this 1988, I want to use 1651, let's say. That Celtic green, and maybe my bird. I want my bird to be ice blue. I don't know, whatever you want. All right, so you can color those. And when you save this as an OFM, the colors will always be saved within DesignShop. So anytime I close and reopen that file, all right, let's just do it this way. So it's there. Those are the same colors that are there, right? Now, if you're using within the OS side, there is an auto select color sequence that you can use, but it does require that your color chart be colored right. So let's see if I have a picture of the color chart in here. Sorry, I'm clicking in the backup stuff. No, I didn't. I got to put it in there because I keep on wanting to come back to it. So when you go to set your colors, you know, there's the thread tree. If you color the thread tree with the colors that are on the machine and they match what you're using in the OS, well, then it becomes easy, right? Because you can just tell it to auto match. You've got the colors saved in the OFM. When you load it to the machine, you can tell it to auto select and it will choose those, and it'll sequence it all for you and everything there. You can also save from the OS and then tell it to load. That's kind of a different thing altogether. So food for thought. Let me know what scenario you're working with and I can help answer it a little more specific to your needs. Anna has a question on YouTube. How can you increase the density of V11 fonts? Some stitch very light. Okay, so density. All right, so density is just a setting within anything you're doing, right? So if I come into the properties, you can get to properties a bunch of ways, and you do this within DesignShop, right? So I can select my text, double click on it, and under top stitching, that's where you're going to find your density. You'll notice here it's percent based, all right? That's because auto density is turned on. If you want to know what that percent is doing, it's going to adjust whatever the table from auto up or down based on whatever percent you give it. So if you're curious what auto is doing, you can always click on these three dots to see. And this will show you that, hey, when things are small, so 10 points is pretty narrow, it's going to do a pretty large density with spreading the threads out. By the time you get into the bigger elements, it's going to go down to around 3.6 density. All right, well, if you don't want to do that, let's say you want everything to be around 3.7, you can turn off auto density and set it to be a flat number. Auto versus a flat density. Auto density takes into account the width of the stitch, so it's going to be a little bit more variable. So it can make sense, particularly if you're doing like script fonts that go from really skinny to really wide. It can help optimize that a little bit. So that's some food for thought. But if you just want to decrease the density, period, I can add a ton of stitches by decreasing this number. So just to give you an idea, let me go back to 4, which is the default. This is 2.6K. So if I go down to 3, now I'm at 3.2K. So you're adding stitches. You're making the stitches closer together. Remember, density is how close together these stitches are. So let me set this to 4. All right, so if I measure from stitch to stitch here, there's my 4 points. So if you're looking at something and going, yeah, it's way too sparse, I'm seeing too much fabric, I want the stitches closer together. If those are the sorts of thoughts going in your head, what are you going to do? Well, you want this distance to decrease, so your number's going to go down. So I'm going to be ridiculous about it and make it go way down. All right, so 2. Do you want to? No. Well, if you're doing puff, you probably want smaller. But anyway, so again, you measure it. See, that's the distance. It decreased it. Where if you're looking at a design, you do a sew out and you go, oh my goodness, I'm hammering that to death. It's too many stitches in too small of an area. I need to spread it out more. If those are the sorts of thoughts going through your head, what do? Well, you'd increase this number. Again, I'm going to be silly about it, just so you can see. The higher the number, the more spread out. The lower the number, the closer they are together. So again, there's my 8 points. Okay, so do I want that? No. 4, you know, is a good average number. I personally lean towards a little bit lower than 4. It's just a personal preference. Anna, hopefully that helps you some. All right, what other questions do we have? I don't see any typed in. I won't hang up right away. Let's see. I really like this combined chat. I found a new tool on kind of the software we use to broadcast to multiple platforms that lets me see chats on all platforms in one thing. So I don't always have to toggle between the different platforms. It's cool. Anyway, more info than you guys probably care to know, but since I'm wasting time, see if there's any other questions. All right, I don't see any. So, yeah, I guess that's it for today. We will be back next week to see what questions we can answer. So you guys, oh, there we go. I got another question from Brenda. Welcome. I'm showing a special script. Some reason it's trimming between letters. How do I stop it? Okay, so let's go look at that font. Script. Scripty. All right. And you said special. Is that a font? No. I'm just going to pick a script font since I don't see a special script. Athletic script. Okay. So reasons why it would trim between letters. So take a look here. This letter starts there and ends here. This one starts here and ends there. So depending on what, starts here and ends there, but the start is the important part. So it started here. The previous element ended down here. So if the distance between where the previous thing ended and the new one starts, so that's close to 60 points. All right. So if I go into properties in my tie in and tie off, if the number, so if I make this 70 points for some silly reason, it's going to leave that stitch there. Do I want a 70-point stitch? No. But why it would be trimming is that's 60 points and it's set to 32, let's say here, which means anything smaller than this, it will leave, right? It will just keep sewing. Anything bigger than that, it's going to trim. All right. So since that's 60 points from where the previous letters ended and where the new one started, it's going to do a trim, move to the next spot, and start it. So what can you do about it? Well, one, you can increase that number. Do I recommend that? No, but you can. You can change this to closest point, and it's going to then rearrange your starts and stops. All right. So that's one option you have, because now the distance is really close. It's going to be smaller than whatever this number is, so it'll keep sewing through. Okay, so it's good. The question, why is it happening? Because your start and stops and your trim settings is why it's happening, and that's just one way you can solve it. Good morning, Georgia in Colorado. Welcome. All right, let's see. Did I miss any other questions? These videos do stay up on both YouTube and Facebook so that you can always watch them later. You can see the topics if you go to the Melco service site and check those out. We got you. I think we have the link up there already for you. I hope they're helpful for you. I don't see any other questions, so I guess we will call it a day. And I'll be back next week. See what trouble we can get into or how I can help. I do have the question to get back to you about the Melco Puff logo. Like I said, I don't make that call. I'll have to pass that on to someone else for you. But we'll try to get you an answer one way or the other. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in. So you guys have a fantastic weekend. I'm dyeing my hair tomorrow, and then soccer. That's all I do all weekend. Actually, I'm going to row. I have a row clinic that I'm so excited about. I'm going to learn how to row on the water rather than just on the erg. So I'm very excited about this. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, y'all.